Hello everyone and welcome to another recap race analysis here on the Cycling Dane Extra channel. If you're listening on Cycling Dane podcast, today we are still following the Vuelta España Stage 20, the final challenge of the Vuelta. And Patrick, what exactly happened on the day?
We saw a pretty decent breakaway. We saw a pretty decent breakaway forming of must have been about 20-ish riders, but they weren't given that big of a lead, mainly through the work of UE Team Emirates and Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe. We saw Bernal, Landa, Amarai, Ciccone all in the breakaway, trying to snag themselves a late stage victory in the race. Obviously, Bernal's already kind of got his, but they were not given that much time, maybe like a minute and a half, 2 minutes maximum, because UE wanted to work to try and beat Vingegaard, and Red Bull Hansgrohe wanted to work to try and shift Pidcock off of the podium. And not really all of much happened throughout the stage. So pretty much going into the final climb, we see Landa attacking relatively early from the breakaway, and we see a selection then of Bernal and Ciccone and Yardi van der Lee as well from EF in a group behind. Ciccone then bridges across to Landa, dropping van der Lee and Bernal. So then we have a group of like the two up ahead, and they're solo with probably at least 8 to 9 kilometers left of the final climb to go, which gets a lot tougher with about 4 kilometers to go. It goes up this kind of half off-road, half not cement broken goat track up to this weather station, I suppose. Behind we've got UE Team Emirates setting the pace through the likes of Ayuso and Soler, and then lastly it was Jay Vine, the KOM classification winner now pretty much, and he was the main man for João Almeida, and kind of one by one some of the GC contenders were dropping off the back. Most notably was Pellizzari, actually, the stage winner from the other day. He dropped off pretty early, actually, before we even got onto a really difficult section, which is big trouble for the youth classification because he wasn't that far ahead of Riccatello, who was in the front group. And we also see Gal and Jorgensen dropping off the back, but really going at their own pace, being set by Jay Vine. And we see Ciccone and Landa getting caught as we get into the final few kilometers when we pretty much turn onto this really steep bit of road, which is averaging, there's like 17%, 20% sections. It's absolutely disgusting. We see Almeida setting the pace to try and shake Vingegaard, but nothing's really happening. People have just kind of dropped off the back. Riccatello's kind of yo-yoing, as is Pidcock. He's kind of letting a couple of bike lengths go, and then he's working his way back on some of the corners, taking a steep inside line. Then we see Hindley taking over, because obviously he realises that Pidcock seems to be in a bit of difficulty. So Hindley wants to try and hammer home the advantage and see if he can really drop Pidcock, but to no avail. Hindley worked on the front for a good few kilometres and nothing really came of it. Pidcock was still in the group. And then with just over a kilometre to go, we see an attack by Jonas Vingegaard, an attack which we've all been sort of begging to happen for, it feels like, a week or so, and Vingegaard puts in an attack on pretty much the steepest section and nobody can follow him, though it's kind of like a slow-mo attack because it's very steep, but Vingegaard slowly is eking out the bike lengths and drops to Hindley, Sepp, Kuss, Pidcock, Almeida, Riccatello group, who all pretty much stay together for the rest of the climb. Vingegaard keeps on extending his advantage, and ultimately means that Vingegaard takes the stage in the red jersey. Good to see, with Sepp Kuss, his teammate, in second place, then Hindley, Pidcock, Almeida, Riccatello, Jay Vine finishing in 7th despite all the work he did, Ciccone surviving for 8th place from the breakaway, Junior Lecef in 9th place, and Finlay Pickering in 10th. And then just outside of that there was Landa, Gal, Jorgensen, were all probably inside of the top 15 or so. So in terms of the GC, Vingegaard obviously still leads the race. Almeida's in second, Pidcock in third. He did lose a little bit of time today to Hindley through bonus seconds and a few seconds on the road, but not enough for Hindley to take third place. Riccatello fifth, Pellizzari in sixth. So Riccatello takes the white jersey, Kuss in seventh, Gal eighth, Torstein Tillin in ninth, and Jorgensen in 10th place. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Vuelta in terms of GC. I don't know if tomorrow's stage is taking place or not, actually, because of protests and stuff. So I don't actually know if this is the last stage or not. So therefore I'm not going to say if it is or not, but it's definitely the last GC action we'll see, even if tomorrow does go ahead.
Yeah, fingers crossed for tomorrow. But I mean, fantastic for Jonas Vingegaard to cap off his Vuelta España competitive side anyway, and becomes the first ever Dane to win the Vuelta España, improving, well, actually the best result for a Dane since 2023 when he was second. So, yeah, history in the making there. And also, like, yeah, his first Grand Tour win since 2023, obviously because Tadej Pogačar winning everything last year, and then he didn't go to the Vuelta, so you can't win the Vuelta if you're not there, but here doing it and completing this history as with the Vuelta as well, all 3 times. That Angliru was part of it. So yeah, I think this was really cool. What do you think of Bingo? Obviously, we all had him as the out and out favorite. Okay, he wasn't as dominant as we maybe were anticipating, just looking at the time gaps, but a win's a win.
Yeah, exactly. A win is a win, and even if the time gaps weren't that big, you can't take it away from Vingegaard. He has won this Vuelta España, and I honestly don't think he's put a foot wrong, really, in this race. I know there's been, rainy days where he's had a crash. I know there's been bike changes and mechanicals and whatnot, but at the end of the day, in terms of the actual racing, the stuff which Vingegaard can control, he's done a very calculated and just kind of clinical execution of this Vuelta, and I think Visma have done a really good job of just doing exactly what they need to win the race. And yeah, we're probably quite spoilt in this era of Pogačar and how he just seems to attack every race and sort of cannibalize stage wins and whatnot, and Vingegaard perhaps hasn't done that, but at the end of the day, kind of finishing at the top of the step is the most important thing. It doesn't matter if you win by 1 second or 10 minutes, really. That's what the scores on the doors are. So I was quite impressed by Vingegaard, but it does go to show the toll which 2 Grand Tours takes in a season.
Yeah, that's true. We could see him having some moments here and there, but never really getting dropped. He was distanced by maybe a few hundred meters or less even, but never really under the pressure by Almeida and everyone else. Did fairly well. What do you make of Almeida? Second place in the Vuelta is a massive result for him as well. Don't forget the best result he's had is a 3rd place at the Giro d'Italia, 4th in the Tour de France last year. But a 2nd place in the Vuelta is certainly a big result for him as well.
It is, for sure. I think Almeida's a strange one. I think he's did really well considering that he crashed in the Tour and he had that broken rib, if I remember correctly. So the fact that he actually recovered from that and came back and got a 2nd place of a Vuelta is very impressive.
The Angliru stage.
Yeah, and the Angliru stage. That's definitely, you can't forget about that. There's always now going to be the question marks of would more team support have led to him maybe winning instead of getting lots of stage wins with multiple, different riders in the team. If those riders were in the peloton, would that have made a difference? I think that's kind of the jury's out on that. I personally think that it wouldn't have made that much difference. I don't think it would have made enough difference to bridge the 1 minute and 16 gap to Vingegaard. So I think at the end of the day, I think Almeida was just kind of fairly beaten to 2nd place, but he was still very impressive. Like, finishing 2nd is no mean feat.
Would Tadej Pogačar have won this Vuelta?
Oh, easily. Easily.
I had to ask.
I reckon. I think he would have done. He wouldn't have finished lower than Almeida, would he?
Probably not. But, okay then. Tom Pidcock, someone we discussed a lot. Well, we talked about in the Vuelta, in the Giro, where he said this was where he first started with the top 10 finish. I mean, there's been a lot of conversation that he's going to be the next British Tour de France winner. And yeah, a lot of pressure for him to do well in a GC. Obviously, an under-23 Giro d'Italia winner in the past. And yeah, he has a climber's build, but it just didn't really seem like it was hitting, definitely not in Ineos. But yeah, the Giro didn't quite go to plan either. Here, though, oh my goodness, I have to chapeau to Tom Pidcock. Basically a one-man team for the most part in the mountain stages because Q36.5 don't really have the support. And now walking away with a podium, first pro Conti rider I can think of, well, Juan Jose Cobo was a pro Conti rider, but I mean, that result's been annulled. So yeah, what do you think of Tom Pidcock? And absolutely, yeah. Prince of Yorkshire for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. I think that Pidcock's performance is probably, just looking through the top 10, I'd probably say it's the most surprising of the top 10, considering his past GC performances, the team he's on, And the fact that he doesn't seem to have ever done well in a 3-week race, despite the fact, like you say, the signs were there in his under 23 days that he would be. And yet, for years, he's just fallen short of that. And it made me question whether he was ever going to be that rider, or whether he'd almost, just through the lack of the results, that he'd almost given up on that sort of that ambition to try and be a 3-week racer. But I think it's great to see that he hasn't given up on that, and then he should be buoyed on to keep trying at it in other Grand Tours. And a 3rd place is insane. Like you say, it was, the fact of the matter is that in terms of, there was 13 individual time trialing kilometers. Okay, time trialing doesn't really decide the Grand Tours, all the time. It's mainly decided in the mountains, but yeah, Pidcock was really impressive here. He was far better than I ever expected him to be in this race. So yeah, chapeau. I think he was the surprise of the Vuelta for me.
Yeah, when you look at some of the guys he's finishing ahead, you've got a Giro d'Italia champion and Jai Hindley right behind him, breathing down his neck. Red Bull was trying everything to crack him, which he was like, well, I'm also a Red Bull athlete. Please be nice. But yeah, I'm so impressed by this, because he was like a one-man team in the mountains, essentially. And who knows what he can do if he gets a bit more support as well. Is Tour de France well, I'm not saying he's going to win the Tour, but where does he go from here? Is the classics now nothing? Is he just a GC rider now?
Oh, yeah, exactly. They would just flip to the other end of the spectrum, where he's now not going to be a one-day racer, he's going to be a GC contender. I mean, the first fact of the matter is that if he wants to win the Tour, key for 6.5 needs to get invited. That's the first thing that needs to happen. They're in the Giro this year, Q36.5. That's certainly a possibility to go there next year. I would expect that they'd get invited back, especially since he's finished on the podium of the Vuelta. So I don't think the Tour's going to be an immediate goal. I think that what needs to happen is this needs to be backed up by another Grand Tour performance. Because I'm still, even despite everything that we've seen, I'm still not fully convinced that Pidcock is like a Grand Tour contender. And I don't know why. Just these 3 weeks have been very good, but I'm still of the opinion that Pidcock can be very flaky and inconsistent, and one Grand Tour performance, and one good Grand Tour performance doesn't make you a Grand Tour contender. I would be more confident if he backs us up at the Giro next year with like a top 5, then I'll go, okay, yeah, absolutely he is. But this is the first instance where Pidcock has strung together a 3-week race, and I'm not about to start shouting from the hilltops that he's now some Grand Tour monster because of one data point.
I can already hear the Yorkshire cycling fans finding you and gonna banish you from Yorkshire after that statement.
No, I've got the gate locked.
Yeah, I think it's very impressive. But I mean, Red Bull Borhanskura, Jai Hindley in there, Pellizzari, all this very strong talent, strong in the mountains as we saw. Was this a missed opportunity for Jai Hindley and them? Because Hindley is going to be under quite a lot of pressure next year with Remco Evenepoel, Pellizzari getting better, you would assume, Primož Roglic in there, Lipovit. So it's already like 4 names that could maybe be ahead of him. So is a 4th place enough, losing out to Pidcock?
A good question. I think that Hindley... I think he's still got his place in the team.
Leadership, though.
Yeah. Well, I think you're just going to see Red Bull turn into a little bit of a UE Team Emirates, where we're going to start having, as a minimum, 2 GC contenders per race or per Grand Tour. Even though Poggy is obviously the main man, they'll still be like, oh, well, Almeida's here as well, or whatever. So I think that Hindley will still have his place, and he showed in this Grand Tour that he is still the Grand Tour rider that he has been for years. But I think in terms of the overall race, yeah, this might have been a missed opportunity. The fact of the matter is, they got the stage win with Pellizzari, that was great, but we did also just lose the white jersey on pretty much the last mountaintop finish to Riccatello. So it's kind of like you didn't get the podium and you lost the white jersey. So it's kind of like a double whammy, So I think I'll hurt a little bit, but I think that the flip side of that is that they had to try to get Hindley on the podium, so they had to sacrifice Pellizzari a little bit for that. So you have to kind of, they flew close to the sun and got burnt, but it's better than not trying at all.
Yeah, ouch. Yeah, good catch that. Because Pro Cycling Stats is having a bit of a meltdown right now. But Riccatello, we've been searching for the next American, obviously. We thought Jorgensen, well, to some extent, is 2 Paris-Nice title wins and being top 10 here, there, and everywhere in terms of Grand Tours. But Riccatello looked like he was going to win the Tour de l'Avenir the year Isaac Del Toro did. And now he's really shown himself. He's not going to be with Israel Premier Tech next year. He's going to Decathlon AG2R. But what do you make of this performance? Again, a pro continental rider. And they also had a very hard time in this race as well. Don't forget about that team time trial. Absolutely devastating for them.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen Pellizzari do, like, he's been in Grand Tours before, and this is definitely a step up for me, finishing top 5. But he does still lack the time trialing ability, but on a very climber-heavy course, he can still do really well, as evidenced this time round. But yeah, I'm again kind of like Pidcock. I'm unwilling to put him into some Grand Tour contender category now that he's kind of just finished there. But for the future, I definitely think that Riccatello is going to be somebody who's going to be competing for podium places once you start to filter out some of the people getting older. I think Riccatello will
go Remco, Roglic.
Yeah, like Riccatello will start to come into his own, I think, and it was a promising performance, but he was still 6 minutes back from Vingegaard, and another he was 3-ish minutes behind Pidcock and 5 minutes behind it, Almeida. There's still, like, the fact that he was finished 5th doesn't quite give an accurate representation as to how close he was to the top of the race, if you see what I mean. So I think that the future's bright for him, and we'll definitely see what he can do at Decathlon, because they've got a pretty stacked team for next year.
Yeah, looking at that top 10, you said the surprise with Pidcock, Riccatello in top 5. That surprised me for sure. Yeah, quite a lot of time he took out of Pellizzari in the end. What about the rest of it? We probably would think that Jorgensen would finish in there, and Sepp Kuss. But anyone else? Torsten Trenk kind of shocks me. The Norwegian Bahrain victorious rider did have the red jersey for a bit. Yeah,
I think he did really well, because you usually see those people who get the red jersey early and kind of hold it temporarily, keeping it warm whilst the real race leader is kind of playing a little bit of possum and not wanting to do all the media duties. And usually you see that rider just drop like a stone once the actual GC battle kicks off. And it was great to see that Tlen, and kind of the things that he's been going through the last few years, that he held on to the top 10, and he hasn't been like a Grand Tour contender in the past, but he's definitely had some fantastic climbing performances. So therefore he's had the qualities of somebody who could be a Grand Tour contender, and it was great to see him finally be given the support of the team to go and chase after that, and finishing top 10 in this Vuelta is a big performance for him. I think realistically, I don't think he could do that much better than this. I'm not thinking that Tlen is now going to be the next Bahrain victorious GC contender. Okay, I think that this was just a very good race for Tlen, and I'm happy for him, but I don't think that he's now going to be like the Tour de France leader for Bahrain victorious next year.
Well, we might as well finish with tomorrow's stage. If it does go ahead, let's hope so. Pray to the cycling gods. Patrick, who do you think is going to win this? We saw Jesper Philipsen getting in a better of Mads Pedersen. Mads Pedersen seems like he's wrapped up the green jersey. I think Mads Pedersen's won this in the past. I'm not sure. Maybe not. But who do you think is going to win the final stage in Madrid?
Yeah, going from Al Pardo to Madrid, it's not long, 111 kilometers long, pretty flat. Although the Madrid circuit is quite testing. We're seeing a breakaway sort of win. Kind of breakaway, kind of like a group splinters off the front of the peloton. It's definitely a grippy circuit, but not overly hilly. Yeah, Philipsen is the favourite, I would say. Vernon, I'll put it there as well. And Pedersen did look pretty good yesterday, all things considered. I think he pretty much did a sprint that was at least 5 seconds longer than Philipsen's, because he just launched just like super early. It's like Pedersen does really good when the sprints are 350 meters long, but I just don't think he's got the out pace that Philipsen has. So yeah, I think Philipsen's the winner incarnate for tomorrow's stage if it goes ahead.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I think so too. And what a good finish for him after having a very bad Tour de France after that intermediate crash. But anyways, that's basically it for us. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and do check out the Spotify podcast as well. And let us know down below what you thought of this stage. And we will, of course, do our usual ranking video after the Vuelta, so be sure to look forward to that. But for now, thank you for watching, and as always, have a nice day.